Hello, welcome to everybody out there. This is David.
Hey, this is Tim.
And you are listening to Johnny Has the Keys, a podcast about science fiction, horror, movies, television, literature, anything we can think of to talk about it.
Life, the universe, and everything.
Yes. And we are so very excited to welcome you guys back to our second season. Tim, it's our second season.
I cannot believe it.
We're back.
Congratulations, yes. David. We were renewed. That's awesome. I'm so excited.
In the words of Poltergeist, we're back. So, yeah, there you go. Great. And excited to be here. Thank you so much for doing this with me again. It's always fun to get together and chat with you on all of these things. And we want to thank definitely everybody who supports us, who either likes us, friends us, likes us, follows us, emails us, contributes to the Patreon list, all that kind of stuff. So thank you guys so much for making this all possible. Tim, I had something this week that I saw I wanted to tell you about.
Okay, sounds great. What is it?
Two small things really quick. One, I saw, and I think I sent you this or posted this or something.
Oh, I think you're going to steal mine.
I don't know. What was yours?
No, you go ahead.
Well, let me tell you the second one, and then you can tell me yours, and I'll see and then I'll do my second one if I have. Have you heard about this new movie called Midsummer?
You know what? I've heard about it, and that was not my topic. I've heard really good things about it, though.
I have too. I think it just came out or is getting ready to come out, something like that. I can't remember, but the trailer looks awesome, and I saw a headline that said that the cast went to the premiere, and it was the first time the cast had actually seen the movie, and when it was over, they all sat there for like 10 minutes in like stunned silence. They say the ending of this movie is actually psychologically scarring.
I love it.
I was going, ooh.
I know. Yeah.
It sounds like The Exorcist again, you know.
Yeah, it's like those old time movie ploys where they say people, you know, where they hype it up or whatever too.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Castle movie, a William Castle movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I'm really curious about it.
I know a little bit about its director. The director did Hereditary with Tony
which
Collette.
also I haven't seen yet, but people say is horrifyingly scary.
Yeah, I want to see it, and I believe it's on Amazon Prime. It's been on my list. I just haven't had a chance. And actually, it was on our list for movies this season, but it didn't make it. It didn't make the cut, but that's okay. It might come up in the near future. You never know. So
True.
I mean, the reason it didn't make it is because we haven't seen it. We weren't really sure about it. So.
And what was your other one that you were mentioning that you?
I was gonna bring up something that you had posted on Facebook, in that actress Victoria Pedretti is going to headline The Haunting of Bly Manor, which will be the second Haunting series from Netflix. Was that yours?
Yes, that's what I was going to tell you.
Okay,
you already knew though, but so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about that because, I mean, we did our deep dive last season with Haunting, which was really unique to do an entire series episode by episode. And we both talked a lot about her and how standout her performance was.
Yeah, she's spectacular.
So, and I was kind of glad that it was just her, that it wasn't like, oh, we're going to pull an American Horror Story and I'm casting the entire cast again or whatever.
Well, do we know that?
We don't, unfortunately, but maybe we can hope. And it's not that I wouldn't want to see them all again. I just wouldn't want to see them all again.
Well, I mean, it's still Mike Flanagan and Amblin TV and Paramount TV. So, I mean, we still have some of those that are behind the scenes that are the same.
Right, of course. But like, you know, American Horror Story has the same production crew too, but they just keep using Kathy Bates again and using, what's her other name? The other girl.
Sarah Paulson.
Yeah. Sarah Paulson over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that show's mostly lost steam after the second season anyway. But
it's it's so hard to get into. We could do a whole podcast on it. It goes up and down, and it's consistently inconsistent. Most of them are terrible. and most of them try to be it's too much sensationalism, I guess is the word. It's like, let's take every horror trope that we can throw into something. If I'm watching something about a haunted house in the woods, I don't need a cannibal inbred family down the road. You know what I'm saying? They
Right.
try to put
Right. Right.
too
Right.
much into a story when they should focus on just like, Hill House we talked about. It's a haunted
Yeah.
house that affected a family. That's all it's about. You don't have witches coming around the corner. You don't have inbred families down the block.
Well, now that's Ryan Murphy, right? Which
It
always
is.
surprised me because that's the same guy that did Glee, which is like the exact opposite of American Horror Story.
It is. And in all honesty, he's hit and miss. He's like J.J. Abrams. There are some things he does that
Okay.
I love, and there are some things I literally have thrown things at my television set during American Horror Story.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, I remember he did another series I liked. It was the the one with the plastic surgeon people.
Nip Tuck.
The Nip Tuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was hit and miss. I thought too. I agree with you. I mean, it was one of those that had some great stuff, and then they didn't know what to do, and then they tried some new things.
Well, and I think Glee was that way too, wasn't it? Like, didn't it have a great first season and then just kind of went downhill from that?
Well, Glee's kind of a guilty pleasure to me, just
Okay.
because I like to see how they restructure the music,
Mm-hmm.
and they take these songs and redo them in their own variations, which I really like. It's just that it became, it was a teen soap opera story, but then once all of the teens had been there for like 5 years, they decided, they need to graduate. So now we're going to send them to New York or to wherever, or bring them back as teachers. It got into that weird, what do we do when the cast grows up? Which I think is probably what's going to happen with Stranger Things. I noticed in the trailer for the new Stranger Things season 3 that they look a lot older.
Oh yeah, and their voices are
So
lower, I'm sure.
yeah, so it'll be, when you start losing your young cast, what do you do, kind of thing. So,
You sing that Peter Brady
but
song.
yeah.
When it's time to change, you've got to
Yeah. Oh
rearrange.
no. Oh my
I
gosh, what
know
a
we're
reference.
headed down
Oh,
that tunnel to the Brady Bunch, where all
there
tunnels
you
lead.
go. Where all tunnels lead eventually. Yeah.
Oh wow, this sounds a lot like a supplemental episode. We could have used this for all
But
you special vaults out there. We are recording supplemental material that we
yes, we
will
are.
give you a
Special
heads up
stuff.
on a little later. But
Yeah.
we should probably do today's
But
episode.
well, speaking of going down tunnels, I thought that was a pretty good
Oh, that was
segue
a good
too.
segue. I fucked that up.
So no, you didn't. We still segued, so we're still here. We just took a detour around that big rock. So
Tunnels.
right. What is today's first episode of season 2 about, Tim? What's that? What are we doing to?
Well, we are going to talk about Neil Marshall's 2005 film, The Descent. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, it's a great little horror movie. I can give you a brief synopsis. Actually, I'm probably just going to read this because I like it. It says
Please do.
a year after a severe emotional trauma, Sarah goes to North Carolina to spend some time exploring caves with her friends. After descending underground, the women find strange cave paintings and evidence of an earlier expedition. They learn they are not alone. Underground predators inhabit the crevices, and they have a taste for human flesh. Yeah, right down
Yeah.
my alley.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely down your alley. But you picked a really, really, really good alley to go down. My initial thought, I saw this movie originally years and years ago when it came out, or when at least it was released on DVD, I think. I did not see it in the theater. And really, really liked it. Really good story, well told, nice scares to it, incredible production values. I really like the lighting, I really like the direction of it, the cast is good. So all pluses for me on this one. What about you? Do you find it? Is it in your top 300 or?
It's definitely in my top 10 for 21st century horror, for sure.
Okay.
The reason I pushed for this one for this season, and the reason I pushed for it being in the first episode place, is I thought it would be kind of a cool echo to what we did last season with The Thing, because there are obvious keys in the film to The Thing. Not to mention, it is an all-female cast predominantly, whereas The Thing was an all-male cast. So I thought it would give a little symmetry to the beginning of our season. So that's one of the reasons I went there, for anybody curious out there. As far as my personal opinions of the movie, it couldn't get any higher. This was probably the third or fourth time I've seen it. I think the cast is amazing. I was shocked to find out, not shocked, but I was surprised to find out that every single one of those women are from a different country, which I found kind of cool.
I did not know that.
And I don't know where to go without spoiling anything. It's got some really terrific keys out there to some older films that I love. And it's balls out hard. I mean, it's like they said, hey, let's take this scary idea. How can we make it scarier? Let's put it 2 miles underground. Okay. Where there's no light, and there's monsters. So I was just like, ooh, yeah, good going.
Yeah, I mean, you actually made me think of something. You could have easily done this as a, girls camping in the woods monster movie, but instead, let's put it in the most claustrophobic, painfully primal place you can, and added so much added to it. Before we jump into details, can we talk a little bit about Neil Marshall?
Yeah, let's do.
Because he's the writer and the director of this, and he's like a Mike Flanagan in my opinion, but I think he's a little bit more multi-genred than Mike is so far.
He was a little hesitant to do this film because he didn't want to get typecast.
Well, he had done Dog Soldier, which I actually remember watching on VHS, because that's the werewolf one, right?
It is, and I don't remember it very well, but yeah.
I remember watching it, I think, with Rowie. And we watched it on VHS, and it was pretty good. It's again European. I think it's English or Scottish, and it's basically about a small platoon of soldiers, and one of them gets attacked by a werewolf, and turns. And it's set in a it's the horror trope of they're set in a small cottage kind of thing, and they're all being picked off one by one by this pack of now werewolves. But Neil Marshall did this movie, but he's also directed one of my favorite episodes of season 1 of Westworld. He's also directed 2 different Game of Thrones episodes. So he's got some really cool genre credits outside the genre of horror.
He did Hannibal as well.
I think he's done a lot of television. And really good. He's got a great eye. He doesn't have a signature to him, I don't think. In other words, watching those episodes of Game of Thrones, which I've seen, watching that Westworld episode, which I've seen several times because I love season 1. Watching this, you don't get this is obviously a Neil Marshall movie. The way you get with other directors, the way you get with Spielberg, or the way you get with Ridley Scott. You can tell their works. And you can't. He's very good at, I don't know if that he's hiding a style, but he adapts his visuals to whatever, story he's telling, which I like.
Yeah. It was also dubbed, I think by the cast and crew, but it eventually caught on as 6 Chicks with Picks.
It is. I mean, I thought about, and I remember thinking this, the first time I watched it as well, this is for all of you guys out there. You've been dating the girl a couple of weeks or a couple of months or whatever, and you say, hey, why don't you come over? We'll watch a chick flick. Then put this in.
Yeah.
Because this is a chick flick with a bite, let me tell you. It's really good.
Yeah. And then watch them squeal with terror.
And overall, except for a couple of little minor things, I think it plays out really well from a story perspective too. In other words, it makes pretty much logical sense in places.
I think it does. I think there are things that elevate it from just a regular old horror movie, and I'll get into that a little bit
Oh,
later.
why not get into it now? What do you think elevates it? What do you like about it?
Well, okay, I'll do it in a more broad and general term, broad and general way.
Okay.
It is a straightforward horror movie, but there are elements of like surprise and tragedy that are almost Shakespearean in extent. I think you know
Mm.
what I'm saying. I mean, there are some moments that are like a gut punch to the stomach, and the breath's knocked out of you because you didn't see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of times it's not intentional. It was, things happen. Sometimes people get hurt, and it is not intentional, and it's devastating. This is hard. I'm tiptoeing around things, and like I'm trying not to reveal something, and we're gonna obviously spoil things in this movie. But
Well, why are you tiptoeing? I don't understand.
well,
Why
let's
are
just
you
say
tiptoeing?
there is betrayal in this movie, and there is tragedy in this movie. And a lot of that you don't see in your run of the mill horror film. I mean, you don't see betrayal and tragedy really in Halloween. You don't. I mean, you may see tragedy, but you don't see betrayal. It's got those human esque qualities that I don't know that theater has. I don't know. Shakespeare just comes to mind.
Yeah. Well, and I like the fact that one of the key, I guess, subtextual things about the whole story, especially with the lead character Sarah, is not really stated. It's never said, but it's highly implied, and I think everybody gets it.
Hmm.
Which is, and it's just done with like a couple of shots in the very opening, that kind of prologue thing with her and her family,
Hmm.
and then and that just sticks with you, and you keep thinking about it, and then by the end of the movie, you get it, and you go, "Okay, I was right. That's probably what happened."
Hmm.
But nobody says it.
Nope.
You know, do we have to tiptoe? Why are we
I
tiptoeing?
don't
Can
know.
we say,
What we're
"Oh my
trying to
gosh"?
say is that of the six women, there are two friends that are in the very beginning scene in a river raft shot. Their names are Sarah and Juno. And Juno, by the way, is just gorgeous. I was amazed at how beautiful she is. And coming from a gay man, that means a lot. I
Mm.
said my first line on my page says the scenery is gorgeous, and so is Juno. Um,
Mm.
it is
See,
set.
and I like Sarah because she's a blonde, and I also like Beth. I like Beth. I
Mhm.
like that actress,
Yeah.
Alex Reed. She's great. But keep going ahead.
As they finish their river rafting, and they're getting ready to, they cut up and they get ready to go to the car. You see a glance exchange between Juno and Sarah's husband, which clearly the subtext is, oh yeah, these two have had an affair. It's kind of obvious, or either that, or they've got something, a major attraction for each other.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, because he actually helps her out of the water.
mhm. Yes.
He actually helps Juno out of the water
Hmm.
while Sarah is docking the boat and everything else. So yeah, and it's not said, it's not implied. I mean, it's implied, but it's not said or stated by anybody. And yet you feel it, you know it, and then later on at the hospital after the tragedy, um, Juno can't take it and leaves.
Hmm.
And you can see she's really, really a lot more emotionally invested in her friend's tragedy than the death of her husband than a friend probably would be.
Right. And that
So,
is the tragedy, to that part, is that they are on their way back from that rafting trip and are in a car accident, and the husband and child are killed. So Sarah is
and that is
now
so well done.
without a family. Yeah, it's so fast too.
It's so fast, so out of the blue, so crazy. Although I do kind of have an issue that I don't think copper pipes would do that, but because copper is very, 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 it bends really, really easy. I don't know if copper would do that. But then again, it's copper in England or something, so maybe it's different.
Oh, David, you're so analytical.
Scottish So analytical, Scottish copper. But no, a very scary scene, very well told. The gore is right in your face, and
And
you feel it.
shocking. It's not like gratuitous.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I love that next sequence of her waking up and running through the hallways as the lights turn out.
Mm.
It's like she's running from the darkness. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, it's foreshadowing.
Foreshadow of, yeah.
Heavily foreshadowing.
And great. Those two characters, I think, are the prime motivators of the story. But the other girls all come across very naturalistic and well done without a lot of exposition and without a lot of caricature.
It's very
you
big
have
chillish. I mean, they all have pretty well developed characters.
and fairly straightforward. I mean, established in just like 2 or 3 smaller short scenes. Where we get the fact that obviously they're old friends. Obviously they know each other. Obviously they're going to ignore pain that certain ones feel, or they're not going to do that. Even the and the fact of introducing a newcomer into it, this Holly character, who has to kind of catch up. So there are times where she goes, what's her story? I don't want to talk about it, or blah, 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 that kind of thing. So she's a bit of an outsider. She's also a bit of an instigator, which works for the storytelling too, I think. I wanted to say one of the things I liked about it was I liked the layering of the way he did the horror. He does the jump scare at the beginning with this tragedy, which is just right in your face, like we said. Then the kind of paranoia feel of the dream of the being chased by the lights in the hospital corridor, but then this delicacy around Sarah. It's obviously, the bulk of the movie takes place a year later, and they are now in North Carolina, supposedly. Well, they're in North Carolina for the movie. And
it was filmed in the UK.
Everybody's
it's set in North Carolina, yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of tiptoeing around Sarah and taking care of Sarah, all of that kind of stuff. Then they have this kind of much faster than you would expect drive to the cave, which kind of gets exhilarating a little bit. It's kind of interesting. I was going, okay, why are they going I'm kind of concerned they're going so fast. It's bothering me, which kind of throws you off a little bit. Then they get into the cave, and it has its own kind of creep factor when they first land. So we're layered there. But the minute they go into that second thing where I think Juno says a line, something about the only way through is down, or the only way is through the tunnel, or something like that. And they go into that first crawl spacey tunnel, and all of the audio changes, and it affected me so I got immediately claustrophobic when all of a sudden there is no dripping or echoing. You're just hearing their breathing kind of thing, and it's the click of rocks or the scrunch of sand as they crawl through it and everything. It's just so
or things scurrying.
Tension building. Just very much a sense of, and I've got a huge thing in my notes here saying great audio.
I actually watched a behind the scenes thing with Neil Marshall, and he said that he wanted to ramp up the horror very slowly in this film, and that's why nobody dies for almost an hour, except for the husband getting killed at the very beginning. No one dies horrifically in a cave for at least an hour. So
right,
but it's scary.
But his
nonetheless.
Choice of, I mean, you and I have been spelunking before. We've been in caves before,
right.
And his choice of going from these really, really tight, confined passages to these big, huge rooms, or then going to a room that has water in it, or has dripping water in it, or going around the corner of a passage and suddenly you have to crawl through the next section, is great. His choice at the chasm that they have to cross is great, and tension building, even though it has nothing to do with monsters or anything else. It's almost like you're in a survival film.
Well, and they also throw that nugget out at the beginning once they're in. I can't remember which character it is. I think it's Holly that says this is not, or maybe it's even Juno. I can't remember. It ends up not being the cave that they had planned to go to. It ends up being like an
Yeah.
uncharted one because she wants to put her name on it or their name on it as not,
Yeah.
having ever been explored. So all of a sudden they're in like unmapped territory, which makes it even scarier.
Yeah, and I like the fact that, well, the first tidbit that you get really is when when they're in that first chamber, they've just come down the first initial drop. You can still see sunlight, everything, and vegetation, all that. And Sarah sees the huge claw marks in the wall, which, could be a bear, could be something we don't know, but it's just kind of, ooh, there's animals. Which is kind of cool. But to your point, yeah, they don't realize that there's no safety plan. Nobody knows they're there. Nobody's coming to get them until after the cave in. And Juno has to admit, oh, it's not the cave we picked. I want to do my own thing. Without the risk, it's no fun. It's like, yeah, stupid. Mm-hmm. That's like you can jump out of the plane, just have a parachute.
Well,
it's still smart.
And I can't remember who was driving, but it kind of echoes that reckless behavior you were referring to earlier when they were driving so fast. It was like showing that some of these girls are somewhat reckless.
Oh yeah, and I think at least 3 of them are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Holly
for
definitely
sure.
is, because Holly's the kind of punk rockish look to her, and she's the run ahead of everybody kind of thing.
Yeah,
And let's get it
I
done.
got a heavy lesbian vibe from her too.
Yeah, and she's the first one to be injured, of course,
right?
Because she is going ahead and on her own
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. But Juno, of course, is very much into the thrill of it and everything else. But the girl driving, and I should go back and look at, but I thought the girl driving was Sarah.
It might have been her or Becca. Becca reminded me of Heidi Klum. She was the real tall one.
Oh yeah.
It could have been her too. I can't remember.
The one who was the real spelunker. She's the one that had all the gear and all that. Right. Isn't that her?
Right. I have
Okay.
We don't have to go through the cast because most of these people we don't know. But I will say that Sarah is from Scotland. These are the actresses. Juno is from Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
Beth is from England. Becca, the Heidi Klum-esque, is from the Netherlands. Sam is Swedish, and Holly is from Ireland. They are from all over Europe and Hong Kong.
And Becca and Sam were the sisters, right? One's going to be a doctor, and the other one's the teacher. I think she says.
So, yeah.
One of the lines I liked was, "I'm a fucking teacher, not Laura Croft."
Not Tomb Raider, yeah.
No, yeah, not Tomb Raider. That was it. Not Tomb Raider. Yeah. But just the way he layers it, as they get deeper and deeper, it gets creepier and creepier and scarier, and also a faster pace, I think. And he's very inventive in lighting, his choice of lighting, and the way he can still show these surroundings in different lighting ways. I mean, we have flashlights and headlamps, of course, but we also have the flares, because Juno has flares. And the one I thought was really interesting was Holly. One of them had a camera.
Holly.
And they turn it into night vision, so they can see in the dark, which was a really good scary sequence. That was probably one of my favorite sequences, is when Sarah has the camera.
Before we get into the creatures, did you have the same feel? There's a scene I love where Sarah panics because she feels like she's stuck in a narrow passage, and it's either Beth, I think it's Beth or Holly, one of the other.
Beth.
Okay.
Because it's her best
friend. Turn around to help her and walk her through it and like coax her mentally to get past this obstacle. And all of a sudden, the cave or the tunnel part that they're in starts collapsing. And you just hear her words are, "Fuck the rope bag, move." And they start getting out, and it does collapse behind them. Do you feel, my question to you is, do you feel that other side of that collapsed tunnel was probably relatively safe And when they came out of the collapsed part to the other side, that's the section that's inhabited by those things.
Interesting question. Probably because we hadn't seen any creatures
Exactly.
yet. We hadn't, although they did see the later on. I guess like 2 scenes after that is when they find the drawings with 2 cave entrances.
Hmm.
So eventually, someone knew about another entrance, but that could, we don't know these caves. It could have been another entrance
Right.
too,
And then
and that could have been a third
and there's
entrance.
another scene where they're together talking shortly thereafter, and if you look really closely, you can see movement up above them, but they don't see it. Um,
Oh well, one of my favorites is a shot of the ton of an upright tunnel they're walking, and I can't remember the 2 characters, but they're both talking to each other and they're going, "Okay, blah blah blah, it's this way." And this was before the real panic set in, and they go around the corner past the camera, and the camera pans up, and there's a creature on the ceiling who's been there the whole scene.
mhm.
That was one that got me really good. I like the way he again layers these creatures. We think, is it one? Is it two? Then we find out, no, it's more like 35, however many damn is
It's a
too many
lot.
of them. It's a lot. It's more than a family.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I do have an issue in 2 of the big violent scenes. They go to that stuff we talked about at the end of last season in Splinter. They go to that shutter handheld, hard to tell what's happening sort of thing. This is better than they did in Splinter
Hmm.
because at least we can kind of tell, oh, somebody's on somebody's back. Now they flipped them over. Okay, kind of. But he uses that technique again, which I do not like. If you can't show the fight, then don't have a fight. They even do it in Avengers. They do that, or not in Avengers, in Transformers. They do that sped up shutter fighting, which I'm not really a fan of. It still doesn't take away from the fact that it scared the crap out of me. I
Hmm.
mean, this is the 2 big attacks in this are really frightening
Hmm.
because these creatures are. I mean, the fact that they are so primal, I think, is what makes him even more scary.
Do you want to talk
I
about the
think.
creatures a little bit?
Sure, let's talk creature.
I did read where they were designed to look like Nosferatu from the 1922
Hmm.
Klaus Murnau film. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's that they're nocturnal, not
Extraordinary.
well. I guess the word I'm looking for is they're like bat-like in that they don't really see. They've evolved to
Right.
where they don't need eyesight. They survive on sound and living in the dark, which is why their eyes are clouded over and kind of sunken in, and they look like like a mutated fish eye, kind of, like some fish that lives down so deep that it doesn't see either or whatever. They
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
have balding heads, uh, pointed almost ears. Their bodies are very
Mm-hmm.
smooth and kind of slimy. They slime a lot. I got a heavy little bit of a alien vibe, where they would see slime dripping either from their mouths or from stalactites or whatever where they had been. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they the coolest thing to me is that it is insinuated because they find cave drawings in this cave that these were
Mm-hmm.
potentially cavemen that just never came out and just evolved down beneath the earth's crust. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why they're
Mm-hmm.
humanoid. That part of the story alone fascinates me. It makes me think about when me and you were in caves. Yikes!
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that whole the whole thought of this is not even a culture. This is a clan that has a tribe that has evolved down there.
Yeah.
Um,
Clan of the Cave Bear.
I like, and I like the fact that they're so pale. I like the fact that they are so primal. the whole guttural, all the audio in it, the guttural sounds they make, and the clicks and slurps and things, all of that was really, really good. I did have a couple of issues that they could obviously climb up everything, but I never saw really any claws.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, it
but
was weird that they could scale the ceiling like a vampire. That was kind of bizarre. Yeah.
yeah. But when they grab a hold of somebody's leg or something, they're not cutting into it with claws.
Hmm.
You know. And I did think it was interesting. I think they could have coached just a little bit more on you can't see. You just hear things, because I mean, even the first time you see the creature, when Sarah sees it, no one else believes her. Way, way in the distance, when she shines her flashlight on it, it looks at her. But then they say later that it can't see.
Right.
And I went, okay, then why would it look at her? It doesn't even know she's there unless she makes a sound.
I mean, maybe it was hearing her.
You know.
I don't know. Or maybe it was coincidence that it just happened to be looking that direction.
I think he does a really cool thing, too, in the fact that they can't see. There are several times when they're literally right up in a character's face. And the character's trying to be as quiet and not breathe and hold their breath because they don't know they're there. And it happens, I think, like 2 or 3 times in it that it's so creepy.
Yeah. I also read that, or may have saw this on that behind the scenes, that Neil Marshall purposefully casted actors in the roles of the creatures, whereas you would normally use a stuntman or a dancer. He wanted actors because he wanted them to have character.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that really played out very well, because I didn't really see characters. I saw creatures.
Yeah, maybe with the female. I don't know.
The female's the only one that to me looked different.
Right.
All the rest of them looked the same.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about? I'll get to that and say the psychological stuff, but what did you think about the sequence when Sarah gets separated, and she's the one that really finds out everything? She finds this huge, I guess, the dining room. She finds this huge place of bones.
Look at the bones!
And look at the bones, lad. Rabbit, big nasty.
I kept finding myself saying that like the whole time I was watching it. Look at the bones!
You silly sod! Oh, you got us all worked up! Well, that's no ordinary rabbit. That's the most foul, cruel and bad-tempered rodent you ever set eyes on.
You tit! I saw my arm and I was so scared.
Look, that rabbit's got a vicious streak a mile wide. It's a killer.
Get stuffed.
He'll do you a treat, mate.
Oh, yeah? Manky Scots git.
I'm warning you.
What's he do? Nibble your bum?
He's got huge, sharp... he can leap about... Look at the bones!
And she actually has to witness, dinner with one of her friends, which I think was Holly, because she got her axe from her leg. But that, and then the sequence right after that when she suddenly finds an entire pool of blood to dive into. I kind of went, that's pushing it, but I bought it just because it was so primal at that point.
I couldn't tell if it was, it looked like blood, and it looked like it had the viscosity of blood, but then with the lighting, I thought, it could be just muddy water, because it was lit from like a torch, so you really can't tell what color it is. It just looks reddish.
Yeah, but later on when she sees Juno, she's obviously covered in blood. She has like that. It reminded me one of the keys was ash, because she has all of this blood everywhere, but the whites of her eyes are so white.
Yeah, when she comes up out of that pool of blood, my key was Apocalypse Now. It reminds me of Martin
that
Sheen.
was mine too. Very good, very good.
Yeah, I guess you're right. She does, and it's like Carrie too. There's another key. She does have blood like all over her face.
And when she climbs out, at the end, when she climbs out, her hair is obviously red. It's obviously, from the blood, you could tell. But so did you? I mean, did you find that whole sequence plausible? Did you find it believable, or was it kind of like, she found a pool of blood, really, and then killed two more of these things?
It didn't. I mean, it wasn't that. I don't know. I didn't get hung up on the pool of blood. I mean, for all I know, it's just water, and they wash their hands there after they eat. I don't know, and it's red. Um,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
one thing that bothered me a little bit, but I thought was so cool, was when she is starting to climb out on that rock, and that creature just all of a sudden appears and steps on her head, and she just stays
Oh yeah, she's
still.
trying to be quiet.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
he stays there for a long time, and then he moves on, and I'm like, well, doesn't he feel a human head under his foot? Wouldn't he check
Well,
that out?
but remember that he's crawling all over the bones and the bodies and everything else because that's their dining room
Right,
or whatever.
right.
You know, what I really liked about that, I'll admit, was because he drooled on her hair too.
Hmm.
That you said they slimed. He slimed all
Yeah, it was
over her
nasty.
hair and everything else. But that's one of the. That was one that I really liked. That sequence, the sequence where the two sisters are in the kind of side cave and ledge, and they're holding each other, and it climbs right up into their face,
Yeah,
and then climbs beyond them. Is one that was really
and
good.
then her wristwatch alarm goes off.
Yeah, it goes off. Yeah.
They set that up nicely.
It's a horror movie and it's one by one. So what did you think of the deaths themselves? The way they did. You got six girls, so hopefully you're going to have final girl. And we hope it'll be Sarah because she's our lead that we saw from the very beginning, who's had this tragedy a year ago.
Hmm.
But we don't know. It could be Juno too, even though Juno's kind of set up to be the villain.
And the Butch one.
But so how did you
Um,
Yeah, so how did you feel about the deaths?
well, Holly's was, the initial one. She
Mm-hmm.
gets hurt, and that compound fracture is just nasty. I gotta,
Oh my
we're gonna,
gosh,
we're
really
gonna
well
push
done.
it back in, and we're gonna splint it.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah. I don't know if I'd be willing to, get up and walk after that. I would probably need a couple hours there to calm down.
Right. So that's kind of like, if you're plotting it out like a slasher film, she's the first down. The sisters.
But I liked the fact that she was because the creatures picked the weakest one. The way you would if you were a hunter like that.
Hmm.
You would look for the one that's weak. Even though they're using sound to hear her limp
I don't know
around.
that she
But
was
yeah, go
weak.
after the
She
one.
was just stupid because she kept running off into nowhere. You know.
Well, yeah, but remember after that, when she had the splint which was a pick, by the way, was her splint.
Oh yeah.
She was shambling and slow, and people were trying to help
Okay, I
her.
see what you mean. Yeah. So they would pick her off.
So that's what I mean by they would pick her
They
off
hear her
first.
limping.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble remembering the sister's death because the one death that is the most memorable to me and was what I was saying elevates this film is that there's a scene where Juno is fighting. She's up against like
Mm-hmm.
two of them, and she's like slamming hard with a pick, killing her way to survival. And then
She's trying to save Holly.
she
It's that first attack still.
right,
Yeah.
and she in her adrenaline flow, she hears a noise behind her. She turns and swings, and she puts the pick right into Beth's throat. And it is like
Yes.
a gut punch. The wind's knocked out of you, and you're like, holy shit, she just killed one of her friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
plays majorly into the rest of the plot of this film because she leaves.
I thought it was so well done, and it was a great example because it was Beth. It was the one that obviously from the very beginning we see her cares about Sarah, takes care of Sarah, stands up to everybody else all the time to protect her friends,
Mhm.
and Juno leaves her there to die.
Yeah,
That is so. Yeah, to your point, that's so Shakespeareanly tragic.
yeah. The betrayal is with the husband. The tragedy is with the friend.
Uh huh.
Mhm. But
And then the fact that later on, when Sarah finds her and she's still alive. And one of the few things that I could understand that she told her was, don't trust Juno.
Mm-hmm.
Juno did this to me. Don't trust her.
Mm-hmm.
Don't trust anything she says. And that's why Sarah kind of tests her before she shows her the bracelet or the necklace or whatever. Yeah, the sisters. So Holly dies with the initial attack. Beth dies. Well, really, Sarah kills her, but she dies. She gets attacked initially by Juno. The young sister dies trying to go back across the chasm.
Sam is her name.
And and the creature bites her throat out.
And that's a great death because she's in a sling and she's like almost inverted backward. Yeah, it's cool. It's a very cool death.
Yeah. That was a cool death. And then her other sister is eaten right after that.
Yeah, and she's just kind of eaten.
2 or 3 of them.
I think he just kind of mauls into her.
Yeah. Because Juno jumps down into the water, and that's when Sarah finds her.
Mm-hmm. I love when that one in the water looks like it's dead, and then it just looks at her. That freaked me out.
Yeah. That one got me, too. I was going, okay, gotcha. That one got me. Mm-hmm. And then Juno, of course, is essentially left to die by Sarah, just the way, she had left.
Beth. Yeah, after she puts a pick in her leg.
Yeah.
It's like, vengeance is mine. Whack.
I thought, he didn't. It's there again. One of the things I like about this screenplay that he did was, because it's the whole affair. You slept with my husband, blah, 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 was implied but never said. This whole kind of descent into the subconscious, face your fears and come out of it, Sarah, kind of story, subtext or, secondary plot is in there too, but not really in your face. She has to face her fears. She has to face the darkness. She has to, find her strength. And she finds it by admitting what she probably knew a year ago. With this whole affair thing and taking vengeance. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was it's really cool. You don't see that in a slasher film.
No.
And you usually don't see that kind of layering in a monster movie.
And that's the exact word I was going to use. It's layers that you don't get typically. And that's what elevates shows like The Haunting of Hill House and this into more of a higher art form than just your typical horror movie. I mean, these are real characters. Definitely. There is a drama playing out. And it's not just the horror of the monsters in the cave. It's about what's going on in the horrors of this woman's conscience and what has happened to her with her friend. So
anything else about creatures or that kind of plotting? We good with all that?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I had a note on the set, but that's not really creatures. It was all interiors. None of it was on location. None of the caves.
Well, help me because I didn't do a lot of research on this one other than just watching it and getting my reaction. It seems to me the VHS version I saw had a totally different ending. Did it have a different ending?
Yeah, there are two endings. I happened to see this movie in the theater. And then I happened to have the DVD. Okay. And the version I saw in the theater is totally different than the version I saw on DVD last night.
Well, the one I saw last night has Sarah miraculously finding the other entrance, even though we haven't seen her climb up anything. She as a matter of fact, she was at the bottom of this kind of thing where the lake was that Juno fell, yet she walks like 2 more caverns, passes out, and then
wakes up in daylight.
And she sees sunlight. Yeah. And it's this really artistically cool shot of like this whole, like a staircase of bones. Almost just the way he lit it, and it's diagonal going across the frame of her climbing out. Then she has this big climb out of the woods. Great actual emergence kind of birthing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Runs screaming, gets to the car, drives away, blah, blah, blah. And we have a little jump scare at the very end when she sees like Juno's ghost or whatever. And the whole time I'm watching it, I'm thinking, okay, this seems a little fast, but I like the hysteria. That's probably the way anybody would be after that experience.
It's very similar to another film, too.
Which is?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. When the woman gets out of the house and gets in the back of the truck.
And just, yeah.
And it's just like, is it the end? Is it really, because she's just mad, crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're thinking, is this the end? Is this the end? Is this the end? She gets beeped at by the big logging truck. She looks in the passenger seat, and Juno's sitting there. And it kind of, scream, and boom, we cut to the picture that Holly took of all of them together. And the credits roll. And I went, okay, yeah, okay, made me feel good. Okay, gives me that kind of. But wait, I think I remember something totally different when I first saw this movie, because that was like a dream or something, right? I don't know. I don't have another version.
And what happened was when they previewed it for American audiences, it did not do well. They thought the ending was uber depressing. So they added the ending of the jump scare in the truck and then cut to the picture. And that was it.
Well, what was the original ending? Still the jump scare in the truck or no?
No, the original ending is she wakes up, crawls out of the cave, gets to the truck goes by, she turns, sees Juno's ghost and screams and wakes up, and she's back in the cave. She never got out. And she's...
Oh my God.
And then they just focus on her, and the camera pulls out, and you just see that... Oh, no, I take it back. I forgot one part. When she wakes up in the cave, you see like a flame burning, and she looks up, and it's her daughter holding out a birthday cake with candles on it. And she's seeing her daughter there. And then the camera pulls back, and you realize the daughter's not there, that she's there alone in the cave. And the camera continues to pull out, and she gets smaller and smaller, and you just hear those things moving around her. And that's it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm glad I got the happy ending.
I know. It's like she's not getting out. She's doomed. So
that's pretty bleak.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like the bleak, but I remember seeing that. I guess that's what we saw in the VHS version that I watched the first.
Yeah, they restored it for the home releases. They just did not show it in theaters. And I did see this in a theater. I was gung ho to get there and see this.
Yeah, it was good. What? Okay, what about keys then?
One I mentioned to you the other day that I didn't even realize, but the poster is from a Salvador Dali painting, and it is also shared with Silence of the Lambs. It's of a bunch of naked people positioned to where they resemble a skull.
Well, and I think it's the 6 girls, right? Isn't it on this poster?
Is it?
Yeah, it's the 6 girls.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I'm looking, and it is. So they've recreated it.
Yeah.
Because the one on Silence of the Lambs, I believe, is the original Dali painting. And they just reduced it so small that it looks like a skull on the back of a moth.
On the death's head moth,
right,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's one of the keys I had. Is that imagery has been used in more than one film. So that's kind of a direct key. Another key I have is there are parts of this movie where the music is almost directly ripped off of Ennio Morricone's Thing music. Did you notice that?
Really?
Yeah.
I did not. I noticed a couple of times when it was extraordinarily symphonic, and then he would suddenly cut and you would hear nothing, or just the dripping water, and so it made it really abrupt.
Yeah, like the one I'm talking about in particular is like say they move on. You know, it's the end of a scene. They move on, and then the music goes dun, 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 dun,
Oh, okay.
Dun,
Just
dun.
like,
And I'm
yep.
like, wow, that almost sounds like the exact same music from the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost it was disconcerting to me how similar it was. I was like, wow, is that the same music? It's not, but it's very, very
Mm-hmm.
close. So that was another one I had. I have several more. Do you want to take a turn or two?
No, you keep
Okay.
going. Do all of
My
yours.
biggest one is that it is so much like John Borman's Deliverance with women instead of men. You know,
Ooh, even down to the compound fracture.
right?
Very good.
It
Yeah,
takes
I could
place
see
in
that.
caves instead of on a river. But in all honesty, these are human inbred things just under the surface, as opposed to dealing with inbred hillbilly things from Deliverance, hunting the guys down. So to
Mm-hmm.
me, I would say the strongest key is probably Deliverance in
Hmm.
my book.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
What else do I have? The crawlers remind me of Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Two.
Oh, dang. I did not get that
Mm.
at all. That's great. Yeah.
Um, I mentioned Alien and Slime. I mentioned Apocalypse Now. The scene,
Mm-hmm.
the scene where she grabs one by the head and puts her thumbs into its eyes is directly lifted from Evil
Mm-hmm.
Dead. I mean, directly.
Yes. I had that.
Uh,
I had that one.
I would compare it also to The Ritual, that movie that we talked about last year, where the men are in the English countryside in the
Mm-hmm.
woods, and
Yep.
there's some stuff going
Yep. I
on.
had that one.
That's another one that is very along the same theme or motif. Um, I would I had mentioned Shakespearean elements. To me, the scene where Sarah finds Beth and Beth is not dead, and Beth tells her to beware of Juno, is almost like
Mm-hmm.
Banquo's ghost telling the
Yeah, I could see
prophecy of
that.
what to, beware of. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what else? And then, if well, I already mentioned the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The only other thing is, and you've already mentioned this, is that our own personal key would be the fact that you and I and our friends Bill Pitts and Steve Rowe used to hang out in a giant cave and even camp out in
Mm-hmm.
it and drink beer and do crazy ass things. So that would be my personal key, is that we've all kind of done this before.
And we never saw any white skinned stalker creatures.
No.
Or at least that we admitted
Mm-mm. I
that we
did
saw.
write an early I did write an early story about it, but I haven't read it in a couple of decades and I'm sure it's terrible. But I did write a story about our adventures. So it didn't feature
Well, and I thought,
crawling things though. I don't
no,
think.
no, 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 no. There's a lot of that. I just like the layering he did all the way through this, and because you can see some tropes, but he's layered them so well that like we said, it could be the typical Night of the Living Dead cabin in the woods, kind of pluck you off one at a time, kind of basic trope. Because if you consider the whole cave as where they're trapped, kind of thing, but he does it in such a clever way and adds so many layers to the sisters trying to protect each other, the death of Beth, which is so just abrupt, and she's one of the characters you really really liked, and it was like, oh my gosh, and have it happen by a friend
Hmm.
makes it even worse. And I seem to remember a key that's similar to that, and I cannot remember it. But I remember a friend killing a friend in a movie like that, but can't remember the specific one. So, and I'm not even sure how to research friend killing friend in movie, kind of thing. But I seem to remember that happening somewhere else. I just can't remember where.
That was kind of brutal when Sarah had to kill Beth and crushed her head with a
Oh
rock.
gosh,
That was pretty awful.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You had to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's really, yeah. I mean, you had the three that I had in there, so that was
Did you
good.
have Deliverance?
I did not
Oh,
have
I
Deliverance.
figured.
That was real Deliverance or Gollum. Those were both good ones.
Yeah, I just to me it's like a modern horror version of Deliverance.
Yes, definitely. And they did do a sequel to this movie, which I have never seen. Um,
Me either.
so wondering if it was because I don't even know if it's the same characters. I don't know why. If you were,
I saw on IMDb where they're all billed, so I'm wondering if it's just
well, it
flashbacks
must.
for
Well,
most of them.
duh. I mean, they're unless it's a prequel.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I think Sarah actually does wake up and escape at the beginning of it. I read that somewhere.
but then,
So they changed it.
okay. So yeah, so she did
Or they
survive.
no, they went with the American version is what they did. I read that they went with the American version and had her survive for the second one.
Yeah.
But I have not
But
seen it.
then, why would you ever go back for Descent 2? Why would you ever go into any dark space ever again? I would.
Well, I don't know. Ask Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, good one. There's that. Maybe there's a reason because, like, for
Yeah.
Aliens, she had to go back to help protect the colony. So maybe this one is, I've got to go get my friends' bodies or something, or we've got to tell somebody. We've got to tell somebody so nobody else goes in there. That's probably her.
I've got to get the bones.
Look at the bone slide. That terrible, big nasty. Oh yeah, just a harmless little bunny. Oh yeah. Cool.
I wrote the humor. The humor is fun and real.
Mm-hmm.
Marshall wanted to ramp up the horror slowly and said he was inspired particularly by Dario Argento and Lucio Fulci.
And what? And Fulci? Really?
And Lucio Fulci.
No.
Yes.
No,
I said that wrong, but yeah, Lucio Fulci. I can't
I
pronounce
could
it.
see Dario
Yeah,
Argento.
he said he was inspired by those films,
Huh. Yeah.
which I love.
Yeah, I know you do.
It's better, but yeah, got to have my Italian filmmakers in there.
I have the only other note that we haven't covered at all was I even like the flashlight credits because the credits at the very beginning are like illuminated by flashlights. I thought that was kind of cool. That was just a nice little graphic there. But yeah, oh, and we said the thing not only for the, this ominous presence that's slowly killing us, but the flares. The flares reminded me a lot of the thing all the way through.
Oh yeah, that's right. And all the red lighting they give off.
Yeah, I like the fact that he used like we said, he used different means of showing the darkness. Whether he used the flares, he used the glow sticks, or just the.
Actually, it was very. If you want to give a technical key out, I could see some original Star Trek in there with the lighting. Like some scenes would be lit bright green, and some would be like bright red, and it was really pretty looking.
Yeah, he did
the way they did.
Yeah, he
it.
did a lot of that monochromatic scenes. Either it's all orange because of the firelight, or it's all red because of the flare. Yeah, I could see that. That's a good one. Yeah.
The only other thing I have that I think I haven't missed is it did win a lot of awards. And I know I go over some of these awards sometimes, like we did with Splinter, and some of these things you've just never heard of because they're like, Fangoria Chainsaw Awards or something, that's not really highfalutin. But something called the Academy of Science Fiction and Horror gave it the Best Picture of 2007, which is interesting because it came out in 2005. Shauna was nominated for actress. That would be Shauna Macdonald, who played Seven. And it was nominated for makeup. And then for the British independent film, Marshall won for director.
Oh, okay.
And it won for technical achievement, which would be my guess, the fact that they had to build 21 cave sets to film it.
Yeah, I was going to ask that in your research or in the behind the scenes. Did they build those sets or did they find those sets?
They did. It was Pinewood Studios.
Those were well done.
The location shooting was done around the UK. I want to say Scotland. I can't remember.
Well, it'd have to be because it looks like
else was filmed in studio.
Yeah, it looks like the Appalachians, so it'd have to be in Scotland.
So yeah, that's all I really know about it as far as sets and designs. Is that it was constructed. They said that the reason they went to lengths to light it differently was so that it didn't look the same if they were reusing one.
Oh yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot it from the other angle and then paint it red. Yeah. Oh, painting. I did. Okay, because and I know I always bring up little stickler things that bother me, but they found cave paintings, yet the creatures were blind. That bothered me too. I was going, why would they paint anything on the walls?
Because my theory was that they were men at one time. They evolved into those creatures.
Oh,
those
that
paintings
makes sense.
are older than the creatures.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And to me, that's fascinating. I mean, that's that old trope of, inbred children, hillbillies in the mountains or whatever, except it's just underground.
Mm-hmm. But also
they just evolved into these things.
The whole thing, that Lovecraftian thing, or that even the thing that it still goes on today, where they find that that tribe in the Amazon that has never been found before, and they're still living in these primordial kind of conditions and stuff, and they've never been touched by society, or the old ones kind of thing. Buried deep under the ground, there's an entire civilization of creatures or whatever. Pickman's model and all that. So, yeah, I could see that. And it is creepy.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, that is a big key, too, is that this is kind of, I don't know, Lovecraftian or, unique species to the world that we're unaware of or whatever.
Yeah, creatures from the depths sort of thing, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Good. A good one to start the season out with.
It was a good one to start the season with.
Man.
I really, really enjoy this movie.
I did too, and I do recommend it.
It was fun watching it again.
People who want to see a good horror movie, this is a good one.
And especially anybody out there that's pissed off, with the Me Too movement, because this is a female empowered film.
Oh yeah.
There's no two ways about it. It is female driven, purely estrogen, and kind of the opposite of The Thing.
Yes. And that one great shot when finally Juno sees Sarah and Sarah sees Juno and she's holding the pickaxe and the torch. And she's got the blood and her hair's all... Oh, it was great. Love that image. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Chicks with picks.
Chicks with picks. Or what did you say they called it? Did they call it?
6 chicks with picks.
6 chicks with picks, yeah. There you go.
That's what the crew was calling it. Yeah. That's funny.
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
All right, we're winding down.
Yep. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for...
Here we go with another awkward departure. Season 2 style.
Always. Listen, write us, like us, follow us, do all those things.
We want to hear from you.
Yes, please. And we will...
What movies do you like? What movies do you hate? Do you agree with what we're saying? Do you not? Let us know.
Yes. Do you want to go?
We might drop your name out there.
Please do. Yes. And we'll talk at you next time, Tim.
All right. It was good talking to you, David.
You too, buddy.
Look at the bones!